Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. Inflation. Prices are not coming down as Americans continue feeling the pain. How's the Biden administration reacting to the latest numbers, and what are lawmakers telling us about their response? NTD's Iris Tao has more.
Americans looking for relief from inflation did not find it in June. The Labor Department said Wednesday the consumer prices jumped 9.1% last month compared to the same time last year. That's the fastest annual increase in 40 years. And Americans are feeling the pain. Gas prices were up 11.2% last month and almost 60% over the past year. Yet President Biden, issuing a statement shortly after arriving in Middle East, calls June inflation numbers out of date, citing a recent drop in gas prices. And the vice president echoing him.
Average national gas prices have fallen every day for nearly 30 days.
But Republicans are not buying that.
He said that same thing when I put this similar chart up months ago. It hasn't changed. Yeah, there's been a small tick down in the gas prices, but they are still the major driving force here, and they're still above $5 a gallon.
Other GOP senators accused Biden of overspending while pointing to increasing domestic oil production as solution to high gas prices.
And provide some real relief to American consumers if we would just produce more energy here at home.
And the higher than expected numbers will likely give the Federal Reserve a green light to continue with its aggressive rate hikes to cool off the economy. And the next hike, which is widely expected to be another 0.75 percentage point, could come as soon as later this month at the Fed's next meeting. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
The government is now scrambling to figure out ways to put out the fire of record high inflation. One move reportedly being considered by the Biden administration is rolling back some of the Trump-era tariffs on Chinese goods. Earlier, I had a chance to ask a group of Republican senators if they supported this move.
There was a report called a Section 301 report that was done on China's practices with regard to trade, and it was determined that China was not playing by the rules, was subsidizing with dumping and other unfair trade practices, and therefore these tariffs were put on. China has not changed its behavior. And in fact, the Phase 1 agreement that was negotiated between the previous administration and China has not been fully implemented as a result. So my concern is that we don't want to send the message to China and frankly to other countries around the world that when countries are found to be unfairly trading, there's not going to be a consequence. And when they make a commitment to do something, as they did in Phase 1, and don't complete it, that we should not reward that. So my hope is that we don't do a wholesale elimination of the tariffs, but rather look at it on a case-by-case basis, which we did during the last administration and do not do in this administration, which is to have what's called an exclusion process, where, as an example, if the product being imported from China is not otherwise made here in the United States, that might be a good candidate for reduction or even elimination of that tariff, because it's not helping American workers. But on other products, where there's direct competition with American workers and where it's being unfairly traded, that's not a level playing field for American workers. So we have to be very careful there. Also, I've looked at the impact on inflation that it would have, and it's minimal. It's minimal.
Well, it's ironic. The Biden administration says we're struggling to be able to produce enough oil, and so let's go to Saudi Arabia and get more oil. We're slowing down on manufacturing, and so let's go to China to get more manufacturing. If there's any lesson that we should have learned during the time of COVID is that we cannot be dependent on the communist Chinese government on our supply chain. And this president that repeats over and over again, let's do made in America, is now trying to be able to deal with the inflation problem that he has caused and his policies have caused by going to China to be able to make us even more dependent on China long term. We need to have a policy that does work towards making things in America, that deals with the regulations that he doesn't want to reduce, that deals with the production issues that he doesn't want to deal with. He should make it easier to produce in America, not easier to be able to actually go get from China. That's a better long-term solution for us. So he's trying to solve a real problem that he's created by creating an even bigger problem for the United States long-term, running back to China to be able to resolve this problem now. So let's resolve it by dealing with the regulations here and ask the simple question. Why are we going to China to get something done when we should be actually asking the question, why can't we do it here? Let's deal with the regulations that would actually resolve it here.
Former senior Trump advisor John Bolton says he helped plan government coups in foreign countries, and that January 6th was not an attempted coup by former President Trump. Bolton made the comments to CNN after yesterday's January 6th committee hearing. He was disagreeing with one of the committee's claims based on his own experience in toppling governments.
One doesn't have to be brilliant to attempt a coup.
I disagree with that. As somebody who has helped plan coup d'etat, not here, but other places, it takes a lot of work, and that's not what he did. It was just stumbling around from one idea to another.
Bolton did not give details when CNN asked which coups he had helped plan, but he did mention Venezuela as an example of how hard it is to attempt a coup. Bolton also said that he doesn't think Trump was trying to overthrow the Constitution on January 6th, but instead was trying to buy more time to throw the election matter back to the states. It is worth noting that Bolton and Trump had a tumultuous falling out upon his departing the White House, as the two did not see eye to eye over many issues. Border Patrol agents continued to report record-high illegal immigration encounters and a spike in the amount of illegal fentanyl seized on the border. President Biden and Mexico's president have just pledged billions of dollars for border infrastructure. Here's NTD's Melina Wisecup with the details.
240,000 illegal encounters last reported in May is the highest number ever recorded. Senate Republicans today providing details from a report they've released on the unprecedented surge and highlighting what they're calling the humanitarian crisis now unfolding.
Little boys and little girls who'd been physically assaulted, who'd been sexually assaulted.
There's nothing compassionate about luring people into a trip where rapists and murderers and the worst human beings on the planet get their clutches into them.
The group is unveiling a bill to address the issue, including extending Title 42 to quickly expel illegal immigrants, resuming border wall construction, and making remain in Mexico permanent. But they tell us they're clear-eyed that their solutions won't be realized until they have control of Congress.
We're not naive. That probably is not likely. We're looking forward to times when there's different numbers in each of the houses.
But even then, President Biden could veto any Republican-led legislation that reaches his desk. The president has other ideas in mind.
Focused on rebuilding a solid framework of U.S.-Mexican relations.
After meeting at the White House Tuesday, Biden and Mexico's president together pledged $5 billion for border infrastructure, $3.4 billion from the U.S. and $1.5 billion from Mexico. The president has also pledged to double the number of work visas for Central American immigrants. But other than this, we haven't seen any comprehensive plan from the White House or here in Congress that's able to pass regarding immigration reform or getting illegal immigration under control. I'm wondering if you guys are working on anything to deal with those issues.
Whether it's work permits, a fix for DACA, and a path to citizenship. Those are things that we strongly stand for. But reforming our asylum process and making it easier for folks to claim asylum is something that is a thoughtful approach and something that we need to consider as well.
Melina, where does Congress stand on creating or working on laws to ramp up border security or immigration reform as a whole?
Well, Steve, right now there is no comprehensive immigration plan that is being considered from lawmakers here in Congress. There still seems to be much partisan divide on this issue. So we heard from House Democrats today who are pointing fingers at Republicans, saying they're creating obstacles to passing any bipartisan solution on immigration. And then later we heard from House Republicans who say that first they need to secure the border, and that's the main issue, which most of the time Democrats won't go for. But it seems like anytime lawmakers are proposing any sort of bill, they're so large that there's at least one or a dozen poison pills in those bills that the other party can't agree on. So since Congress will not pass any smaller bills to address the issues where they actually agree on, it seems that this immigration issue is stalled here in Congress. There was a bipartisan immigration bill introduced over on the Senate side, but that has not moved forward because it doesn't seem like there's much appetite from congressional leadership to get that moving. So as for now, it seems both parties are aware that the immigration issue is something they need to deal with, but there's so much partisan divide that they're not able to get anything done so far here in Congress. Steve, back to you.
Melina Wisecup reporting. President Joe Biden today arrived in Israel, kicking off his Mideast trip. The White House hopes to bring Israel closer to Saudi Arabia and to convince the Gulf allies to pump more oil. This is Biden's 10th visit to Israel, but his first time as president. It's also his first time on a foreign trip, embracing one of former President Trump's legacies, the Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and several Arab countries.
We have reaffirmed the unshakable commitment of the United States to Israel's security, including partnering with Israel on the most cutting-edge defense systems in the world.
Biden met with Israel's defense minister, among other leaders, to discuss missile defense systems. During his 2 days in Jerusalem, followed by a visit to Saudi Arabia, Biden aims to broker an agreement to get the two nations closer to normalization in order to tackle Iran's nuclear threats together. He also wants to convince the Saudis to pump more oil because of rising prices back here in the United States. Countering aggression from China and Russia is also on the agenda. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.